Tonight there's this one story I can't get out of my head. The exact moment an entire galaxy realizes it misjudged an entire species. Not because of a speech. Not because of a war that lasted years. Just because, one day, something too big and too calm is waiting where it shouldn't be. You spend generations laughing at someone, building jokes and nicknames, and smug little stories around them. The blue cradle, the baby fleets, and then, in a single encounter, your brain has to rewrite all of that. I've always been fascinated by that snap in perception, when mockery has to make room for fear, and for respect you never planned to give. And it really makes you wonder what that feels like from both sides. For the old empire used to being the one that sets the scale. For the upstart world, that's decided then being the punchline and build something sized to end the jokes without saying a word. So get cozy and let your thoughts drift out past Pluto for a while, because this story lives in that quiet, thin sunlight at the edge of Sol. You and I are going to sit with a calm human commander on a Titan-class warship named ENS Obsidian Crown, and with a Drevy admiral who still thinks humans are cute. Right up until his sensors find a hole in the stars that shouldn't be there. By the time the rest of the galaxy understands what that shadow means, it's already too late. They had laughed at our slow ships and tiny stations. They had joked about our blue cradle and our baby fleets. They had talked about humans like a noisy younger cousin who would never quite grow up. All of that ended in a quiet patch of space beyond Pluto, where sunlight was thin and the stars looked sharp and cold. Out there in the dark, a single human warship waited. It did not roar. It did not boast. It did not rush forward. It simply existed at a scale no one had ever expected from Earth. This is the story of that ship, the Titan-class ENS Obsidian Crown, and the calm man who sat in its command chair, waiting for an empire that still thought humans were a joke. This is the story of how fear became a tool, used slowly and carefully, and how a laughing galaxy fell silent. By 2584, the Milky Way felt old and busy. Trade routes wrapped around stars like glowing highways. Stations hung above gas giants, their lights blinking in steady patterns. Fleets crossed the dark at faster-than-light speeds, leaving nothing behind but stretched space and numbers on sensors. Among the older powers, the Drevy Dominion stood tall. The Drevy were not the oldest race in the galaxy, but they acted like it. Their ships were sharp and angular, colored in white and deep red, with bright fins that served no purpose but style. Their worlds were rich and stable. Their admirals carried themselves like nobles from ancient stories. They sat on the Galactic Council with smug patience. The Galactic Council itself was not a true government. It was more like a huge shining room in space where many empires sent their most polished faces. They argued about borders, trade lanes, energy rights, and machine treaties. They kept the peace when it suited them and ignored it when it did not. In that chamber, the Drevy seats were always near the center. The human seats were near the back. Humans had arrived late to the star party. For centuries they stumbled through their own problems on Earth and nearby space. while other species crossed light years as easily as seas. By the time humans showed up on the council floor, faster than light ships trembling, just a bit on their first long flights, the older empires were already tired of fresh flags and new languages. They did not hate humans. That might have been easier. They found humans cute. There goes the blue world, Drevy diplomats would say, watching human delegates speak with too much passion and too many hand movements. They still use metal hulls. Other species joked, sipping glowing drinks in the side lounges. Metal hulls, as if they are still playing at ships. The Drevy Dominion, with its fleets and old star rights, took special joy in this attitude. Their historians like to remind everyone that Drevy ships crossed the stars, while humans were still using chemical rockets to touch their own moon. On council days, holos drifted through the air, showing maps of controlled space. Huge shaded areas marked old empires. Thin new lines, bright and narrow, showed human trade routes curling around nearer stars. They looked small and fragile. That picture sat in many minds when the first rumors came. Earth was building something big in secret. Most laughed that off too. Let them build, Drevy Admiral said. Size does not give wisdom. Far from the council, on the Dominion flagship, Gleaming Fang, Admiral Thrax Forn settled into his command chair and checked his own private holo of the Sol system. Thrax Forn was long-limbed, with deep violet skin marked by silver service bands across his neck. Each band showed a campaign, border actions, pirate hunts, pressure patrols near rival empires. His white hair was pulled back in a tight ring above his head, as was the style for senior Drevy officers. He had seen many young races stand tall for a time and then fold under real pressure. Sol's star glowed as a pleasing yellow sphere in the center of the display. Thin rings marked human defenses. Small icons showed patrol ships and stations. The whole image looked light, like a child's sketch made of dots and lines. Admiral, said a soft voice from the side, projected arrival in the Sol frontier in 40 standard hours. Lieutenant Kess stood near the sensor pit, hands resting lightly on the console frame. She was still young by Drevy terms, her skin a rich, dark blue without many service marks, yet her eyes were sharp, always moving between screens, and a wide forward view. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Thrax said. His voice carried across the bridge. Calm and smooth. Enjoy the view while it lasts. The humans have worked hard on this toy system of theirs. Soft chuckles moved across the bridge crew. Not loud, but easy. Kess did not laugh. She had studied the human files. Yes, their ships were smaller. Their technology lagged in many areas. But they pushed hard. They learned fast. There was a certain unsettling focus in their recent designs. Still, she was Drevy Navy. She trusted the numbers. The mission order had been clear. Officially, it was a stability sweep. Unofficially, it was a reminder. Human raider groups had started to intercept Dominion cargo ships near shared borders. Nothing large yet, but annoying. The Dominion could not let that stand without reaction, or other young races would start to test them too. And the council? The council would act busy, write reports, and then look away while the older empire settled matters. Srax flicked his fingers through the air, scrolling mission details. 3 cruisers, 8 destroyers, 20 support ships, he said. Against how many Earth Navy hulls, Lieutenant? Kess checked her screen. Known sole defense fleet shows 32 ships, Admiral. But she zoomed in, frowning. Their mass signatures are small. Most are under 300 meters. Shields are rated 2 generations behind Drevy standard. Cute, Thrax said, a smile touching his mouth. Like a pack of starfaring corvettes, the bridge officers relaxed even more. The flagship, Gleaming Fang, almost a kilometer long, sat at the center of its task group. Its hull was polished white under layered energy shields, with thin golden lines running along its length like delicate veins. The Dominion emblem, a stylized star with sweeping curves, was painted in deep red on the forward plates. Behind it, Drevy cruisers slid through folded space on quiet drives. Their formation was neat, well practiced. This was not a battle group on edge. It was a patrol force that did not expect surprise. Kess turned her gaze toward the main forward window. Technically, it was a reinforced hollow, but the ship's systems tried to match the real view. Stars hung in thick clusters. Dark gaps lay between them like deep wells. Somewhere ahead, past points of light and invisible borders, waited a yellow star and a ring of worlds. Sol, first time near a cradle system, Lieutenant? Asked Commander Eltaran, the ship's second officer. He had noticed her staring. Yes, sir, Kess said. It feels strange, like walking into someone's home. Rel laughed. Homes do not get to make demands of the Dominion. Thrax heard that and let it pass. He understood Kess's thought, though he would not say it aloud. Cradle systems were special, even to old empires. The place where a species first stood up under its own star carried weight. Like a childhood city that never quite left the mind, he had seen 3 such systems during his career. A few burned, most tamed. A few burned, most tamed. All had given way under enough pressure. Remember the briefing, Thrax said. We are not here to destroy Earth. We are here to resize it. The bridge grew quiet at that word. Resize. It was a common term in Dominion strategy talk. An empire, a company, or a world could be resized by cutting down ships, forcing new treaties, or showing such clear dominance that future resistance seemed pointless. Humans walked into council space with loud jokes and shaky engines. Thrax continued. They started raids before they finished learning how this galaxy works. They need a line drawn. He leaned back, letting the chair's gentle restraints mold around him. Disable some fleets. Take control of their outer docks. We will not strike Earth itself unless they force our hand. The message must be firm, not wild. Kess listened in silence, studying the small human flag at the corner of her screen. Earth's flag had changed over the years. By now, it was a dark field with a single bright circle and thin lines reaching out like simple orbital paths. It was neat, almost too honest. They had placed the circle in the center, as if saying, "We know we are small, but we are here." In another part of the galaxy, far from gleaming Fang, a different screen showed Sol from a different angle. The ENS Obsidian Crown did not look like a ship from any Drevy chart. It sat past Pluto's wide, lonely orbit, holding position among scattered ice chunks and stray rocks. The sun was a distant coin of pale gold behind it. The ship's hull was a vast shape of layered black armor, broken only by glowing lines of soft blue and deep green. To a nearby drone, the Obsidian Crown did not seem to fit in the frame. It was too long, too dense, like a small, controlled continent turned on its side and set adrift. Inside, on the main bridge, Commander Ellis Ward watched the same Sol map Thrax Vorn used. Dark hair cut short, brown skin, steady eyes that gave away little. He wore the simple black uniform of Earth Navy, broken by a single silver bar at his collar and a small patch at his shoulder. Earth Navy. ENS Obsidian Crown. Around him, the crew worked in low voices. The bridge lighting was soft and warm, not harsh. Displays glowed in shades of blue and green instead of angry red. The room felt more like a quiet control center than a place of war. Dominion Task Group has crossed Neptune's outer marker, reported Lieutenant Hina Goyle from sensors. FTL tunnel collapse in 9 hours at projected Sol frontier. "Thank you," Ellis said, but left no doubt he expected precision. A slim woman stood behind his chair, hands folded loosely. Admiral Rebecca Shaw. Her presence felt heavier than her frame. Lines at the corners of her eyes showed long years in service. Her gray hair was cut close, practical. She did not wear medals. She did not need them. "This is their response to the raids," she said quietly. "Yes, Admiral," Ellis replied. "It matches council patterns. A show of force that they do not plan to lose. And what do most of them think of us still?" Ellis gave a small, almost amused breath. "Nosy. Behind. Not worth real caution." Shaw's lips bent in the smallest smile. "Good. Then the doctrine may work. The doctrine. On paper, it was called Strategic Presence Initiative. In mess halls and off-duty chats, crews had given it a shorter name. The Titan Plan. For decades, Earth had tried to catch up to other empires, ship by ship, weapon by weapon. Every time Earth closed a gap, the older powers opened another. So Admiral Shaw had taken a different route. Instead of many ships, she pushed for a few that would not fit into the galaxy's usual charts. Not carriers, not stations, Titans. Warships so large and dense that they bent normal rules of design and psychology. Ships built not just to fight, but to change how others thought about humans in a single glance. The ENS Obsidian Crown was the first that left dock, Commander. Shaw said, "Remind me of your mission in 2 sentences." Ellis did not need to think. They had talked about this many times. Stop the Dominion Task Group at the Sol frontier. With clear, Controlled strength, he said, end the habit of treating Earth as a joke without turning us into monsters in the process. Good, Shaw said, fear without chaos. Power without victory parades. The no celebration doctrine was her other gift to Earth. If humans had met this moment, like old empires, they would have filled Earth's skies with fireworks and flooded the network with songs and slogans. Shaw refused that. The galaxy is used to laud winners, she had told the council in a closed session. Once, they know how to answer those. They are not ready for a winner that says very little. So there would be no cheering crowds on the public feeds, no open boast, just quiet orders and a Titan waiting in the dark. Ellis looked out at the thin stars on the main display. I will not fire first, he said. You will not need to, Shaw replied. They came convinced of their own story. You will simply let them see another. Behind them, deep in the hull, the Obsidian Crown systems hummed. Miles of conduits pulsed with stored energy. Shield grids sat idle but ready. The main spinal cannon, buried inside layers of armor, remained cold and silent. Fighter bays slept, their doors closed, while strikecraft sat lined in neat rows under dim lights. On thousands of worlds, sentience laughed at old jokes about humans and their little blue ball. Out here, beyond Pluto, a Titan waited patiently at the edge of that laughter, like a full stop at the end of a long, careless sentence. The Dominion task group moved closer. Kesral watched her screens, unaware that her name would someday be taught in human academies as the first Drevy to truly see a Titan. Ellis Ward steadied his breathing. The galaxy kept laughing. For now, the shift alarm on Gleaming Fang's bridge chimed soft and clear. Lieutenant Kesral was already awake. She preferred the early watch, when most of the ship felt quiet. She liked the gentle hum of the drives, the regular scroll of data, the way the stars on the main display seemed closer in the darker lighting. She slid into her sensor station and logged in. Numbers flowed across her screens. Background radiation, ship emissions, gravitational, drift, shield balance. The Dominion task group was dropping from faster than light. Soon, near the Sol frontier. FTL tunnel collapse in 60 seconds called the navigation officer. Brace for transition. The familiar tension rose in Kess's chest. Travel was safe and old tech by now, but the shift still felt strange. Reality stretched a bit in the mind. Colors jumped. Some people felt it in their teeth. Transition in 3, 2, mark. The starfield jerked. For a brief instant, the forward display blurred. Then the view snapped into a new pattern. Stars shifted to new positions, tighter and more dense. A soft electric feeling slid over Cass's skin and then was gone. Dominion task group present and accounted for, reported another officer. All ships stable, drives cooling. Cass checked her console. All primary sensors active, she said. Sol star located. Outer marker reached. No contacts inside range grid. A to H. So far, it looked like a typical system frontier. Thin scatter of rocks. Slow drift of old, frozen objects. The faint, steady light of the sun far ahead. Gleaming Fang moved ahead of the task group, the flagship cutting a clean path. Energy shields glowed faintly on Kess's side readings, like thin layers of static wrapped around the hull. "Admiral," she said, "long-range scan sweep. Complete. Detecting standard nav beacons on human side. No major defense platforms in this region." "Of course not," Thrax answered. "They keep their toys nearer home." There was light humor in his voice, but his plans were serious. He wanted to strike just deep enough to shake human pride, then stop before council protests became sharp. Slow pressure. Clear hierarchy. Kess started another scan out of habit, widening the arc. Her station sent out waves of detection in many forms: light, radio, gravitic pulses, magnetics. Each type bounced off matter, fields or mass, and returned as patterns. Most days it was like listening to quiet static. Today, after a few seconds, something odd appeared. A tiny gap. It was not a clear signal. It was the strange absence of one. Kess frowned and leaned closer. She adjusted the filter range, cutting out some background noise. The gap stayed. It was small, almost too small, but it did not match any of the usual artifacts she knew. "Sensor glitch," she muttered, more to herself than to the room. She ran a quick self-check. The console status came back clean. Arrays healthy. No damaged dishes or lines. The gap sat at the edge of her range, like a drop of black ink on smooth glass. Lieutenant Raw, Admiral Thrax's voice, had that tone that said. He noticed her focus. "Report." Kess cleared her throat. "I have a distortion on long range. Admiral, it looks like a missing section. Instead of a spike, could be an object with an odd profile." She shifted the view to the main auxiliary display so others could see. The screen showed a ring of faint sensor lines. At Sector 1013 Gamma, the line stopped for a narrow wedge before starting again. As if something had bent them or swallowed them, Commander Reltarn raised his eyebrows. "That is a large gap for a minor object." "Range?" Thrax asked. 9 light minutes from current position," Kess replied, "near the projected Sol frontier defense line." Thrax studied the image. Likely a human station, overtuned to hide itself, or some new trick. "Mark it. We will clean it up during our pass." "Yes, Admiral." Kess did not argue, but she increased the scan density over that sector. It was not just the missing lines. As the system sent out fresh pulses, their return times felt off. Off, slightly delayed in ways that pointed to strong mass and deep artificial fields. Sensor science could sound complex, but in the end, it came down to this. You send out something and watch how it comes back. Light bounces off objects. Radio gets absorbed or scattered by metal and plasma. Gravity waves bend around mass. Each return tells a story. Here, the story was strange. Her gravitic sensors, which measured how space curved around mass, showed a gentle but clear dip. Space itself was being pulled deeper in that narrow wedge. as if something very large sat there, but her thermal and light sensors did not show any matching object glow. "It's like," she began, then stopped, trying to pick a word that did not sound foolish. "It's like a dark spot in the star field that should not be there." Rel stepped closer. "Starfield?" Kes switched the display mode from graphs to visual overlay. The main forward holo updated. Stars shone in sharp points against black. A faint, moving grid showed scanned sectors, enhanced 1013 gamma. Kes said. The view zoomed in until even small stars looked slightly larger. Most shone steady. Near the bottom left side of the region, there was a space where fewer stars showed. Not empty, exactly, just thinner, as if something large and dark lay in front of them, dulling the light, but not fully blocking it. "Could be dust," Rel said. "A cold debris field." Kes shook her head. Debris would glow a bit in infrared from starlight. "In not seeing that, this is more like a very smooth, very large surface that is colder than the background at our sensors." "Are you telling me there is a hole in the stars?" Thrak's tone stayed mostly light, but Kes could hear the edge under it now. "A pocket," she said carefully. "Something that bends incoming sensor waves and shows up as less, not more. And the mass reading is high for that size." "How high?" She ran the numbers again. "Admiral, the local gravity variation suggests a structure several kilometers long. Possibly more, depending on density." That drew a low murmur from the back of the bridge. Thraxvorn stood up. "Several kilometers. And so?" His eyes narrowed. "Preposterous. Our last intel pass was only 3 years ago. Humans did not have the industry for that scale. Intel can miss hidden projects," Kes said, then quickly added, "Admiral, with respect." He paced a slow half-circle. "Hidden, yes. Sloppy, maybe. But a titan in a cradle system, built by Earth?" He almost laughed, but the sound never fully formed. Kes watched the hole on the stars again. The longer she stared, the more sure she became. This was not dust. This was not a natural rock. It held its shape too cleanly. It moved with too much smooth intent. "Refine focus," Thrax ordered. "Full spectrum. I want that object painted in every band we have." "Yes, Admiral," Kes said. She widened the sensor pulse, sent extra power into the beams. Radio, laser, gravitic, EM sweeps all reached out across the 9 light minutes, like invisible hands feeling through the dark. A few minutes later, returns started to arrive. Nothing bright, no classic hull shine, just clearer edges around the gap, like the outline of a giant that refused to wear any light. "Still too dark," Rel said. Kes swallowed. "Our higher energy beams are scattering off a layered shield mesh, sir. It's redirecting them in patterns I don't fully understand. But the scattering map, look," she layered the scatter data over the starfield. Slowly, the shape of the object became visible, not through direct sight, but through the way energy bent around it. A long, slender form, thick in the center, tapering at the ends, Flat planes with hard angles, the nose seemed blunt, armored. Along the sides, faint zones showed where fields were more complex, perhaps bays or weapon emplacements. "Admiral," Kess said quietly, "this is not a station." "Then what is it?" Thrak's voice had lost its earlier playfulness. "A ship," she said. "A very, very large ship." A silence settled over the bridge. On the far side of that strange dark shape, the sun kept shining. Pluto's cold path circled in patient silence. But in that quiet band of outer space, something vast and artificial floated and watched. On the ENS Obsidian Crown, Ellis Ward looked at his own sensor feeds. "Hina?" he asked. "Have they seen us?" "Yes, Commander," Hina replied, her tone calm. "Dominion scans have increased by 30% in our sector. They are painting our shields en masse with everything they've got." Ellis nodded as if this was a simple time check. "And their response?" "They're holding formation," said Tactical Officer Ren Ito. "Flagship is probing. They're not charging weapons yet." Admiral Shaw stood with hands behind her back, eyes on the Dominion icons, creeping closer, on the tactical map. "Remember," she said softly, "presence first, response only after contact." Ellis tapped a control on his chair. "All hands," he said, his voice carrying through the vast hall. "We are in visual range of the Dominion task group. Maintain current status. No weapon systems active. Shields at passive ready. We will let them see us." On Gleaming Fang, those words could not be heard. Admiral Thrax said, "The object is adjusting orientation. It is turning toward us." The gap in the stars shifted. For a moment, light from behind slid along a new angle, giving the sense of motion. The mass reading rose slightly as the face of the object turned more directly into their sensor lines. "Speed?" Thrax asked. "Minimal," Kess answered. "It's not closing fast, just presenting itself." "Presenting itself? What? Like a parade vessel?" Kess did not answer. Her heart rate had ticked up. Sweat gathered at the back of her neck. "It is aligning its long axis with our approach vector," she added, "almost as if it wants us to see its full size." Across the bridge, minds turned that over. Intelligence reports had mentioned rumors. Dock workers near Jupiter talking about a black mountain with engines. Fragmented scans of something huge, leaving an asteroid yard. Many had laughed it off, filing it under human drama. Big talk for small fleets. Now, here 9 light minutes away, something very large and very quiet waited in their path and adjusted its posture so they could not miss it. Thrax's jaw set. "Bring us to combat readiness," he said. "Shields to full. Weapons charge. Inform the cruisers to hold a V-screen. No ship fires without my order." Alarms pinged through Gleaming Fang. Not shrill, just clear. Lights shifted from cool white to steady amber. Crews strapped into their stations. Weapon crews woke from half sleep and started power cycles. Cass watched the massive object more closely. As both groups drifted toward each other, the scale became more obvious. "Admiral," she said, "projected length of the ship is 2.8 kilometers at least. Possibly more if the aft section widens out of our current line of sight." 2.8 kilometers. Even for the Drevy, used to carriers and stations, that number sat heavy. Gleaming Fang, proud Dominion flagship, was 920 meters long. This human ship could swallow it 3 times along its spine. Thrax sat back down slowly. "It is a new class," he said, "some desperate human attempt at grandeur. Likely inefficient, likely full of design flaws. Bulk does not equal skill." His words were meant more for the crew than for himself. On the Obsidian Crown, Ellis Ward watched Drevy icons adjust into a battle formation. "They're worried enough," Wren said. "Forming a V-screen means they don't know what they're facing." "Good," Ellis replied. "Hina, status of project presence?" "Fully charged," she said. Low-frequency emitters spun up. "Carrier wave stable." Admiral Shaw nodded once. "Wait until they're closer. Let their pride push them into range. Let them choose the distance at which fear begins." Ellis' lips parted in a quiet breath. "Understood, Admiral." Sol's frontier looked like a small stage from here, with the Dominion fleet entering from one side and the Titan holding center. "We will not fire," he said softly, as much to himself as to the room, "until their own story reaches its end." On Gleaming Fang, Thrax thought of stories too. He thought of young races puffing themselves up, trying to scare old empires with big shapes and tough speeches. The pattern felt the same. "Open a broadband channel," he ordered. Standard council code. "Let us see if our human host feels like talking." "Channel open," communications said. "Unknown soul object," Thrax began, his voice calm, his words translated into human speech patterns by the ship's systems. "This is Admiral Thrax Vorn of the Drevy Dominion flagship Gleaming Fang. You are in contested frontier space, Gleaming Fang. You are in contested frontier space. Power down weapons and identify yourself, or we will treat you as a hostile threat." His message shot out across the 9 light minutes, a beam of information through the thin, dark. On the Obsidian Crown, an alert chimed. "Incoming hail from Dominion flagship," comms reported. "Routing to you, Commander." Thrax's face appeared above the central console, a hovering projection. His rich violet skin and silver bands looked almost artistic in the Obsidian Crown's softer light. Ellis studied him for a moment. Not with hate, more like a doctor looking at a case file. "Translate?" Ellis asked. "Done," comms said. "Hez giving us a standard threat and identify message." Admiral Shaw tilted her head. "Do you plan to answer?" "Yes," Ellis said. Politely, he straightened in his chair as the transmit light turned green. "Admiral Thrax Vorn of the Drevy Dominion," Ellis said. Voice steady, words flowing back along the same band. "This is Commander Ellis Ward of the Titan-class warship ENS Obsidian Crown, Earth Navy. You are at the Sol frontier. Your next move will define how the Milky Way sees humanity for the next 100 years. Choose carefully, the message went out, carrying not just data, but a calm tone that would bother more than any shout. Kes watched the timer on her screen as the human answer traveled, response arriving. Now, communications on Gleaming Fang said. Ellis Ward's image appeared on their bridge, simple black uniform. No loud medals. A patch that read Earth Navy over his heart. Titan class, he had said. Thrax listened to the words. Kes watched his jaw muscle move once. This is their grand project, Rel said quietly. A Titan, Commander Ellis Ward. Thrax replied on the open channel. A large hull does not change your status. Earth is under review for repeated border violations. Stand down and submit to Dominion inspection, or we will enforce Council discipline by force. The reply glided toward Obsidian Crown. Ellis heard it. His eyes did not change. He still thinks in terms of discipline, Shaw said softly. He believes he is a tutor, and we are a rude student. He will learn, Ellis said, but not through argument. He cut the outgoing channel. Hold position, he ordered. Let them come to us. Let them see all of us. On Gleaming Fang, Cass watched the massive ship carefully. It is not moving, she said. No forward thrust. It is just there. A dark presence against the thin starlight. A moving hole where the starfield seemed to bend. What kind of captain waits in front of a Dominion fleet and does not even back up? Rel said. The kind who thinks we will blink first, Thrax answered. Or the kind who has nothing else. He made his choice. All ships, he ordered across the task group, advance to engagement range. Flagship in center, cruisers on flanks, destroyers in screens. We will not fire until we are within 10,000 kilometers. I want a clear scan of their hull when it breaks visual limits. Kess' stomach tightened. 10,000 kilometers was close at this scale. It was like standing face to face with a giant. She watched as their formation moved ahead. The strange dark ship stayed still, turning very slowly, always presenting its full length and the wide planes of its armor to the incoming fleet. It wants us to see its size, she thought. It wants us to understand. Aloud, she only said, range closing, visual resolution increasing. Admiral, you will have your clear look very soon. On the Obsidian Crown, Ellis Ward watched the Drevy formation slide closer on the tactical map like tidy pieces on a board. Hina, he said. At 8,000 kilometers, begin Project Presence. Yes, Commander. He let his shoulders relax by a small amount. This is not about fury, he murmured. This is about presence. In the thin, cold dark beyond Pluto, two stories moved toward each other. An old empire sure of its place, and a young world that had decided to stop being small. The gap between them shrank. The stars waited. Kesral had seen many ships in her young career. She had stood on station decks and watched Dominion carriers drift past like shining mountains. She had seen pirate cruisers patched with scrap and sleek council couriers that looked like silver knives. Nothing had prepared her for the full sight of the ENS Obsidian Crown. Range 12,000 kilometers, she reported, her voice thinner than she wanted it to be. Visual resolution at 90%, putting hull image on main display. The forward hollow, ungleaming fangs bridge, cleared as extra data filled in missing lines. The shadow on the stars became a ship. It did not glow with color, like Drevy vessels. It did not shine. It looked like a massive shape cut out of night itself. The hull stretched across the screen, 2.8 kilometers at least, maybe more. It was not smooth. Layered armor plates overlapped like dark scales, each as large as a Drevy gunship. Deep grooves ran along the sides, filled with faint, slow-pulsing light, blues, greens, and the soft gold of reactor lines. Near the center, huge bays opened like calm mouths, their doors sealed for now. Along the edges, heavy gun mounts rested in folded positions, still and quiet, and on the forward upper section, clear as day, shone a simple white symbol, a circle with thin lines reaching outward, beneath its stark letters in a human script. Earth Navi ENS Obsidian Crown. Cass heard someone exhale behind her. On the bridge, the usual soft sounds faded. Even Thrax Warren did not speak for a long breath. The Titan filled so much of the view that the stars around it looked like dust. "It is Commander Rel," Tarn began, then stopped, searching for a word that did not sound like surrender. "It is large." Kess's mind offered a different word. "Inevitable." "Admiral," she forced herself to say, clinging to her training. Hull composition reads as layered composite armor. Outer plates are pulling sensor beams sideways. Underlayers are dense, denser than standard alloys. Internal mass distribution suggests huge reactors. Primary along the spine. Thrax kept his eyes on the name. Earth Navi. They built this in secret, he said slowly. Under our noses. Under everyone's, Rel added, and they parked it in their cradle system, like a guard animal. Kess ran another scan. Admiral, their shields are at a low idle, she said. Not full combat surge. Weapons remain cold. Fighter bays are closed. They are not taking a ready-to-fire stance. Arrogant. Reland will scare us away. Kess was not sure it was arrogance. Something about the stillness of the Titan felt planned, as if someone had thought carefully about the effect of doing almost nothing. On the ENS Obsidian Crown, Ellis Ward watched the same slow approach. Range for Project Presence? He asked. Closing, Lieutenant Hina Goyle replied. They'll cross 8,000 kilometers in 60 seconds. Their flagship is in the center, exactly as predicted. Good, Ellis said. He turned his head slightly. At a side station, Dr. Maya Caldwell watched several brainwave graphs and stress response charts. She was not in uniform. She wore simple gray clothing and a small tag that read, Pescology and SE STEM's design. She did not design weapons. She designed experiences. "You're sure about this?" Ellis asked her quietly. "Yes," she said. "Every test we ran in the belt yards, every simulation, says the same thing. At this distance with this frequency, sentient bodies feel the mass more than they see it. It registers as weight, as pressure. Fear comes from the body first. Then the mind looks for reasons." "Side effects on our own crew?" he asked. "Acceptable," she answered. "Very low intensity for internal sections. Slight chest pressure at worst. Nothing lasting." Admiral Shaw stepped closer. "Reminder," she said, voice low but firm. "We did not build Project Presence to hurt them. We built it to teach them. Fear is the marker they will remember, not the casualties." Ellis nodded. "Understood, Admiral." He tapped his command chair arm. "All decks, this is Commander Ward," he said. "Prepare for Project Presence on my mark. This is not a weapon strike. This is a statement. Stay at your stations. Breathe steadily. Remember your training. Across the Titan, thousands of human crew members checked straps, adjusted seats, or just braced feet on the deck." Maya glanced up at a small hollow, an outline of a Drevy nervous system next to a human one. "The Drevy heart responds strongly to sustained, low-frequency vibration," she said. "Their species grew up on a world with deep, quiet crust. They trust stillness. When the ground hums, they think of quakes and fault breaks. So we turn their own biology against their courage." Shaw said. "We nudge it," Maya corrected. "They will tell themselves the rest." Hinna's voice cut in. "Range 8,000 kilometers. Dominion fleet maintaining attack formation. Flagship is at the center of our primary arc." Ellis straightened. "Project Presence," he said. "Begin." Hinna's hands moved across her controls. Deep inside the Titan, massive energy coils woke. They did not fire beams or bolts. Instead, they pushed waves of low-frequency energy into the Obsidian Crown's own shield grid. The shields, spread like a skin around the hull, began to pulse very gently, not enough to show as light, but enough to push out a pattern into space. These were not classic weapon frequencies. They were large, slow changes in local fields, like someone very heavy stepping gently again and again on a flexible floor. In simple terms, the Titan began to throb in space at a rate just slow enough for bodies and ships to feel. The waves spread outward in thick, invisible rings. On Gleaming Fang, Kess saw the first readings. "I'm getting a new field pattern from the human ship," she said. "Low frequency, not a weapon's signature." "It's different." "How different?" Thrax asked. "It's coupling with our shields and hull plating," she said, her frown deepening like a gentle push, repeating. The deck under her boots gave a faint tremor. It was not sharp. It was more like standing near a huge machine that cycled every few seconds, sending a pulse through the floor. Her chair hummed. Her chest felt a tiny tightness, as if the air had grown slightly heavier. "Is that—" Rel started, then stopped. His hand went to the arm of his seat. Across the bridge, a few officers shifted their footing. Compensate, Thrax ordered. Adjust inertial dampers. Inertials are nominal. The systems officer said. The reading is external, Admiral. It's not our drives. Cass felt the pulse again. Soft, deep, bum, bum, bum. Like a slow, huge heartbeat pressing through the hull. It's playing with our shields, she said, hearing her own voice shake. Their field is larger than our entire formation. It's pressing gently, again and again. She thought of simple physics lessons, how big objects change the space around them, how big vibrations travel through matter and air. In space, there was no air to carry sound. But there were still fields and mass. If you pulsed a strong energy shield at a slow rate, that change in force spread out. When it hit another ship's shields and hull, it made everything move a tiny bit in rhythm. On a small scale, it was harmless. On a large scale, at the right frequency, it made bones, organs, and inner ears feel wrong. Admiral am reading increased stress in the forward shield harmonics, said the shield officer. It's like someone pushing on a door at regular intervals. Not enough to break it. Just enough to make the lock rattle. Shut it out, Thrax snapped. I'm trying, sir. But I'd have to drop shields entirely to stop the coupling around them. The Drevy fleet also felt it. Pilots on cruisers and destroyers shifted in their straps as the gentle, steady vibration passed through their hulls. Some reached for controls, sure that some engine was misfiring, but the readouts showed green. Their bodies did not care about the reports. Their bodies knew that something huge and patient was near. On the Obsidian Crown, Maya watched a live stream of Dominion bio-red data, pulled from the way their suits and life support systems adjusted to keep crews stable. Heart rates up 10%, she said. Breathing patterns shallow. A few stress spikes, but nothing too sudden. Good. Ellis watched, expression neutral. We stay at this level, he said. No stronger. Hinna nodded. Presence field it maintained output. The Titan itself felt the vibration too. But its systems had been built to handle it. Human bodies did not mind low-frequency hums as much as Drevy ones did. Many humans even found such sounds calming, like distant thunder or a train in the night. Let them feel our size, Admiral Shaw said quietly. Let them feel, even through armor and numbers, that this is not a skirmish anymore. Back on Gleaming Fang, Kess swallowed hard. Her mouth felt dry. The steady thump in her feet and chest made her think of standing under a dam as water pressed on the wall high above. It's nothing, Rel said, but his hand squeezed the chair arm a little too tightly. Just a trick. Kess knew that technically he was right. Energy, fields, vibrations, no holes appeared in the hull. No fires started. But her shoulders had risen without her telling them to. Her muscles braced for something bigger. Thrax's voice cut through. Enough, he said. We will not let human stagecraft rattle us. He leaned forward, All ships, he ordered, prepare for full volley. Target the humans' shield emitters, main engines, and primary weapon mounts. We will peel this shell and see how proud they feel. Without it, Admiral, range is only 7,000 kilometers, Rel said. We are within their heavy weapon distance too. Thrax did not flinch. They had their chance to submit. They answered with a name and a pulse. That is not diplomacy. He raised his voice to the whole fleet. This is Admiral Thrax IV. Drevy Dominion does not turn away from shadows. We do not bow to tricks. On my mark, forward line will fire full power at designated points. Second line will hold for follow-up strike. Third line will screen for any fighter launches. We will take their teeth and then decide how much of the hull to leave as a lesson. He cut the general channel and looked at Kess. Target maps, he said. Kess forced her hands to move. Primary shield emitters are likely along these ridges, she said, marking rows of subtle bumps along the Titan's hull. Main engines here and here. That central spine reads as a possible main cannon housing. Good, Thrax said. We will blind the shield grid first, then punch for the spine. He raised his hand. Fire, he commanded, on dozens of Drevy ships. Weapon crews pressed triggers. Bright lines lanced out across the dark. High-energy beams, plasma bolts, and gravitic torpedoes streaked toward the Obsidian Crown, like a storm in straight paths, from Gleaming Fang's bridge. It looked like pouring light into a pit. The Titan did not move. On the Obsidian Crown, warning icons lit up as incoming fire registered. Multiple weapon signatures, Ren Ito said. Volume heavy, but standard. Their whole line is shooting, shields to full, Ellis ordered. Hold course. Deep in the hull, the Titan's shields surged. Unlike smaller ships, which wrapped thin layers of energy close to their armor, the Obsidian Crown's shields extended farther out in thick, staggered shells. Each layer took part of the incoming blow and passed the rest inward in a controlled way, like a series of nets catching falling stones. The first Drevy beams hit the outer shield. From the Drevy view, there was a brief shimmer as lines of light met an invisible barrier. The beams spread, glowing wider, then faded as their power bled into the field. Plasma bolts plashed like red and gold liquid across nothingness, forming brief, swirling patterns before vanishing. Gravitic torpedoes struck and made the shield bulge inward for a moment, as if poking a giant, clear bubble. Inside, the Titan barely shivered. Outer layer holding at 90%, the shield officer said. Inner layers untouched. No armor breaches, no structural stress beyond design. Ren glanced at Ellis. They are giving us everything they brought, and it's barely a scratch. Ellis nodded, calm. Record all sensor data, he said. We will need to show this later. On Gleaming Fang, the view showed attack after attack slamming into the huge human ship with what looked like very little effect. Shield drain, Thrax demanded. Minimal on their side, Kess said, a sense of unreality growing in her chest. Admiral, our full frontal barrage only shaved a small part of their outer field. Their grid is deep, layered. Another volley went out, another storm of light. Another series of shimmering fades on the Titan's invisible wall. Some Drevy officers began to speak louder than they needed to. Others went quiet, staring. The low pulse from Project Presence continued under it all. Bum, 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 as if the huge ship's heart beat calmly. Even while under fire, Thrak's pride burned. This was not how it was supposed to go. Focus fire, he snapped. All ships converge shots on these 3 points. He marked them. 2 shield nodes, 1 engine cluster. They obeyed. Dozens of beams crossed paths, forming tighter cones at the chosen spots. The shield there flared brighter in the visible spectrum, heated by the extra focus. But it held. Drain at those nodes is higher, Kess said, clinging to the numbers, but the system is shunting power from the rest of the grid. It's like hitting a thick wall. You just make it warm. Rel turned to Thrax. Admiral, we may need to reassess. This is not a typical engagement. Thrax stared at the hull name again. Earth Navy. If he pulled back now, if he retreated from a human ship in public space, the Council would replay this for decades. The Dominion's image would bend. Young species would think they could scare older ones with big toys. His jaw locked. We will not break off, he said. Increase power. Overload their front shield if we have to burn our own guns to do it. Cass opened her mouth, then closed it. On the Obsidian Crown, Admiral Shaw watched the steady impacts with an almost sad expression. Old empires die inside long before they lose their first ship, she said quietly. They stop believing they can be surprised, so they never build for surprises. Ellis let that sit for a second. Are we ready? He asked Ren. Targeting is locked across the formation, Ren said. We can remove ships in any order you choose, with very little risk to ourselves. Ellis inhaled through his nose, slow and even. This is not a slaughter, he said. This is a display. Our goal is not maximum kills. Our goal is maximum clarity. He brought up the Drevy formation on the hollow. His fingers traced a gentle curve. We take the flanks first, he said. Clip away their outer teeth. Leave a wide gap for retreat. Do not hit the ships at the very back, near their FTL escape vector. They must be allowed to run and tell this story. Ren nodded, understood. Firing solution updated. Ellis opened a ship-wide channel. All batteries, he said. You will fire on my order only. You will use minimum force needed to disable or erase designated targets. No wild shots. No showing off. You are not angry. You are precise. His voice carried even to the gunnery decks, where crews sat in armored rooms surrounded by control panels and thick cables. They checked their boards, checked their safety, interlocks, and waited. Maintain Project Presence through first volley, he said. Then taper down. They must know. It is not a natural effect, but a choice we made, and can stop. Yes, Commander. He looked at Shaw. "Permission to return fire, Admiral?" Shaw held his gaze for a long moment. "Permission granted," she said. "Remind them that this is your home." Ellis faced forward. "Fire," he said. The Obsidian Crown woke, not with a roar, but with a deep shift in posture. Sections of armor along the flanks slid open smoothly, revealing heavy weapon mounts. Gigantic barrel clusters extended a few meters out, locking into place. From the Drevy view, thin lines of blue-white energy flicked along the Titan's sides as capacitors dumped power into firing channels. Then space itself seemed to twist. Human-heavy cannons did not fire simple beams. They released tight, controlled packets of energy wrapped around gravitic cores. When they left the barrels, they bent local space just enough to ride their own curve, staying narrow and focused over longer distances. From gleaming fang, it looked like sharp, straight lances of slightly bent light. They did not light up the whole sky. They did not flash with color. They appeared, crossed the 7,000 kilometers in fractions of a second, and met the first Drevy cruiser on the left flank. The cruiser had full shields, fresh and strong. It did not matter. The human shot hit the shield, poured through, and kept going. For a heartbeat, the cruiser's hull glowed along a clean diagonal line. Then the ship simply came apart into two halves, each drifting with a soft spray of gas and debris. No explosion, no fireball, just a silent cut. On the right flank, another cruiser vanished. A beam took it dead center, stripping shield and armor in a narrow column. The aft section stayed intact for a moment, then slid away at its own momentum, pieces peeling off as internal structures failed. Cass stared. Her mind tried to find words like hit hard or crippled, but they did not fit. These shots were not about damage. They were about exact removal. "2 cruisers destroyed," she said, voice thin. "Single shots, clean cuts." She stopped herself. Other beams followed, in a slow, even pattern. They did not all kill. Some struck engines only, leaving hulls intact, but dead in space. A destroyer on the near left had its forward gun sliced off, leaving the rest of the ship spinning, harmless. Another had its shield core punctured and melted, forcing it to drop shields entirely or explode. Ellis had set the pattern carefully. From the Drevy view, their proud formation started to look like a rough shape being carved by a patient hand. "Who fires like that?" Rel said, half to himself. "Who uses that kind of power so little?" On the Obsidian Crown, Ren watched the hit markers. "Front line is in chaos," he said. "Their coordination is breaking. Some ships are trying to turn, others are pushing ahead. Flagship is holding for now." Ellis gave a small nod. "Hold fire for 3 seconds," he said. "Let them see the gaps." The Titan's heavy guns went still. The Drevy fleet hung in the dark, suddenly aware of missing shapes where comrades had been. Open lanes appeared where flanks had once guarded. In those 3 seconds, Thoughts raced faster than any beam. Kess's eyes moved across her screen. "We have lost visual on Shining Edge and Bold Prow," she said. "3 more ships are crippled, Admiral." They paused. Thrax repeated, "Yes, sir." Their guns went quiet. The pulse under Kess's feet began to fade, each thump softer than the last. Bum. 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 Then nothing. The pressure in her chest eased. The air felt clearer, even though she knew that was in her head. "They stopped the field," she said, just like that. As if someone flipped a switch, Thrax understood at once. It was not an accident. It was not some side effect. It was a controlled act, like a hand placed on a shoulder and then taken away. He clenched his teeth. "They are playing with us," he said, measuring every response. "How dare?" Before he could finish, new markers flared on his screen. Small objects launched from bays along the Titan's midsection. Dozens, then hundreds, streaming out in neat lines. Kess zoomed in. "Strike craft," she said. "Human fighters. Many forming up in wings. We will handle those soon," Thrax thought. But before the fighters could reach the Drevy lines, the Titan spoke once more. "Second volley," Ellis said. "Same rules. Planks only. Engines and weapons. No shots at surrendering vessels." Ren smiled slightly. "Understood." The Obsidian Crown's guns fired again. This time, Ellis aimed not just at ships, but at patterns. He cut away the ships that kept the Drevy formation stable, the command destroyer, coordinating left side fire, the communications frigate relaying signals to the rear, the screening cutter that blocked a retreat path. With each calm shot, the Dominion fleet lost more of its shape. From the outside, it looked like cracks spreading through a sheet of glass. On Gleaming Fang, alarms now shrieked. Left flank collapsing, a tactical officer shouted. "We've lost guidance from the second line. Multiple ships are breaking formation without orders." In Kess's mind, the low pulse that had stopped still hung, like a memory in her bones. The huge, calm ship had let them hit it, and then returned fire with frightening precision. It could have blasted the center, could have torn through them, but it was not doing that. It was choosing. "Admiral," Kess said softly, I think they are leaving a way out." Thrax spun to face her. "Explain." She pulled up a 3-dimensional map of the local area. "They're cutting at the sides," she said, marking the missing ships. "Look, here and here. They're not touching the back line. This path," she traced a wide band leading away from the Titan and toward open space, "is still clear. They could have blocked it by killing just 2 more ships, but they didn't." Rel stared, then nodded slowly. "She's right," he said. "There's a corridor. It leads almost exactly toward our FTL safety zone." Cass met Thrax's eyes. "Someone on that ship is planning what we see, Admiral. They are making sure some of us can flee." The word hung there. Flee for a Drevy admiral. It tasted like poison. Thraxvorn felt pressure from many angles now. The humiliation of being toyed with, the duty to protect his crews, the knowledge that the Council's quiet eyes would later watch every second of this. He looked at the Obsidian Crown again. It stayed in place. Its guns were quiet again. For now, its shield shimmered faintly around it. A calm bubble around a dark mountain. Earth Navy. Thrax made his choice. He stood tall. Signal all captains, he said. We are Drevy Dominion. We do not run from tests. Forward ships will tighten and press. We will aim everything at their main gun spine. If we can break that, the rest is just metal. Kessa's stomach dropped. Admiral, with respect, she said, we are outgunned. They are leaving us a way to retreat. That means they believe they can block it any time. Pressing forward into that is suicide. Thrax cut in, eyes hard. That is what you wish to say. Lieutenant, she swallowed. It is tactically unwise, sir. He stared at her for a moment, then looked away. I was at Varen's Rim, he said. I watched a young empire fold because they thought an older fleet would always lose to numbers. They believed fear would make us run. We did not. We held, we pressed, and we broke their line. They never challenged us again. He pointed at the enormous human ship. They think this Titan makes them our equal. They are wrong. If we break it here, now, Earth will never try this path again. Cass opened her mouth, then shut it. On the Obsidian Crown, Ellis saw the shift. They're not taking the exit, Ren said. Flagship is pushing deeper. Several ships are ignoring the clear lane and biting harder at our front. Ellis nodded once. I thought he might, he said. Pride is a powerful engine. Admiral Shaw's face did not change. Then we must be clearer, she said. Ellis studied the Drevy flagship icon. We will have to hit them, he said, quietly. Soon, but not yet. I want their crews to feel the moment their commander chooses pride over survival. He pointed at another part of the map. Prepare Captain Keen's. Strike wing, he ordered. Their turn is next. Behind him, Maya tapped a note on her pad. Bodies are already at their limit, she said. Project Presence started the fear. The shield display and precision fire are adding to it. Once the strike craft move, the pattern will be complete. Ellis closed his eyes for half a second. This is the part I hate, he said. Shaw's voice softened. Then you are the right person to do it. He opened his eyes and looked forward again. Presence, not fury. He reminded himself under his breath. The Drevy fleet pressed on. The Titan watched, patient as a mountain, and prepared to teach the final part of its lesson. Captain Mara Keen floated in the half-gravity of Strike Bay. 3. Eyes closed, helmet in her hands. She could feel the Titan around her through the deck, the faint steady hum of reactors, the distant thump of impacts on shields, the muted vibration of launch rails warming up. Wing status? She asked without opening her eyes. Blue wing ready, came a voice to her right. Red wing ready. Another called. Gold wing is always ready. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Jace Monroe, cut in with a grin Mara could hear. She opened her eyes and looked down the long bay. Rows of strikecraft sat in neat lines, nose pointed to the launch doors. Each fighter was a dark wedge of armor and engines, no wasted curves, no flashy paint beyond small squad markings. They were not pretty. They were meant to fly, hit, and return. Pilots moved between them with quick, practice steps. Techs ran final checks on fuel lines, missile racks, and shield rings. Overhead, status lights glowed a calm green. Mara pulled her helmet on and sealed it. The suit hugged her, pressure even and familiar. Keen came Commander Ellis Ward's voice in her ear. "This is your time." "Copy that. Crown actual," Mara said, voice crisp. "Strike wing is green across the board. Awaiting final vector. Awaiting final vector." Ellis' tone stayed level. "Drevy formation is breaking along the front," he said. "Flagship is still intact, pushing forward. Several ships near the rear are wavering, but have not committed to retreat. Your mission, dismantle their weapons and drives with minimal casualties, open a clear path outward, and leave their choice visible. No heroics." Mara smiled slightly. "Understood," she said. "We're not here to be legends. We're here to be precise." She stepped up into her own strikecraft's cockpit. The seat molded around her as she settled in, straps snapping into place with soft clicks. She ran through her startup check, by touch, more than sight. Power, flight control, targeting, comms, shield bubble, weapons safe. All green. Blue led to all wings. She said on the squad channel, "Remember the brief. No wild breaks. No chasing kills. We move like a pattern, not a storm." "Copy pattern," Jace said. "No storms." The bay doors ahead began to open. Beyond them lay the thin black of space, punctured by distant stars and nearer flashes of weapon fire. The Obsidian Crown's own huge hull framed the view like the edge of a continent. On gleaming Fang, Kesral saw the launches. "Admiral," she said, "the Titan is deploying strikecraft. I count 240 small signatures, fast, forming into wings." Thraxvorn's eyes flicked to the new icons. "So they bring gnats," he said. "Our point defenses will shred them." Kes shook her head. "Admiral, their formation is," she zoomed in. "It's very tight, precise." She chose her words carefully. "They're not swarming. They're locking into layered patterns. Each wing is covering the others. Then we break the pattern," Thrax said. "Order all ships. Full point defense priority on incoming strikecraft. Do not waste main guns on them. Stay on the Titan." Across the Dominion fleet, new orders went out. Turrets turned, short-range cannons warmed, missiles armed. Mara's fighters slid out of the bay, then kicked forward as main engines lit. The Titan fell away behind her, a dark wall stretching beyond her field of view. For a moment she always felt it. The tiny shiver in her chest at leaving the huge safety of the Obsidian Crown and leaping into open space. Then training took over. "Form up," she said. "Blue wing, on me. Red wing, high cover. Gold wing, low sweep. Internal speed. Keep the lattice tight." The strike craft formed 3-layered V-shapes, each offset from the others. Lines of data flickered on Mara's screens as their systems linked. Shared targeting, shield overlap, collision nets. "Crown actual, this is blue lead," she called. Lattice formed. "We are punching through in 30 seconds. "Acknowledged," Ellis said. "We are dialing back heavy guns on your corridor. You will have one clear lane up the gut. Use it." On the Titan's bridge, Ellis watched the strike craft leave like a controlled spray. From a nozzle, where other fleets might have blasted ahead in scattered rushes, Mara's wings moved in one shaped body. Dr. Maya Caldwell watched Dominion stress graph spike. "Spike, they thought the Titan was the whole problem," Maya said. "Now they have to process hundreds of smaller threats that move as neatly as the big one." Admiral Shaw folded her arms. "Presence from afar," she said. "Precision, up close." On gleaming Fang, the sight of human strike craft darting forward snapped some officers out of their stunned trance. This, at least, felt like a familiar kind of fight. "Point defenses firing," reported Tactical. "We're painting their lead wave now." Small beams and flurries of explosive shells reached out toward the approaching humans. "Break pattern?" Jace asked. "Negative," Mara said. "We bend, not break." At her signal, the front layer of the lattice split just enough to let incoming fire pass between fighters instead of into them. The second and third layers shifted in opposite directions, spreading risk without losing shape. Without losing shape, shifted Rexons. It looked almost like a school of fish turning around rocks, but every move came from math and shared data, not panic. "Gold 2, you're wide," Mara snapped. "Correcting," came the quick reply as that fighter slid back into place. They crossed into the thick of the Drevy fire. Flashes of light painted Mara's cockpit. Her fighter shook with near hits. Shield indicators flickered, then steadied as her wingmates' fields overlapped and took part of each blow. "Target sets," she called. Feeding now came Renatus' voice from the Titan. "Priority list. Point defense clusters, external sensor masts, engine nozzles, avoid central hull shots, unless ordered." "We're carving, not smashing." Markers appeared on Mara's display, small red rings around vulnerable sections of Drevy ships. She smiled with no humor. "Blue Wing, take portside defenses on the lead cruisers," she ordered. "Red Wing, go high and blind their sensors. Gold Wing, engines and rudders. Let's take their hands and feet before we touch their hearts." Her fighter Dove, the first Drevy cruiser, loomed ahead, white hull gleaming under its weakened shields. Turrets spat angry beams toward her, but her focus narrowed to a single glowing ring on her display. A cluster of point defense guns near the port side. Firing, she said. Her cannons cut loose in short, sharp bursts. Blue-white bolts slammed into the cluster. Shields flared, then dropped as the Titan's earlier hits had already stretched them thin. Metal melted, turrets died, spitting smoke into vacuum. Port cluster down, she called. Blue 3. Finish the starboard side. On it came the reply. Red wings streaked high over the cruiser, their shots aimed not at weapons, but at slender towers that held sensors and communication arrays. Each tower snapped or burnt under precision fire, leaving the ship half blind and deaf. Gold wings swooped low along the engine line, dropping smart charges right into nozzle throats. Controlled blasts knocked, drives offline without ripping hulls apart. Within seconds, a ship that had been a fearsome threat became a drifting, quiet mass of metal, its guns silent, its engines dead. First target disarmed, Mara said. On Gleaming Fang, Kess watched in disbelief. Admiral, she said, they are not trying to blow our ships apart. They're surgically disabling them. Look, she pointed to the tactical map. Dots marked disabled Drevy vessels, still mostly intact. Weapons offline, engines dark. Shields dropped in surrender. Thrax saw it too. They think they are doing us a favor, he said, anger thick under his words. They think they can show mercy from a place of strength. That is worse than any full barrage. Some of our captains are powering down, Sir Kess said. In seeing shield drops, heat sinks opening. They're choosing surrender. Thrax's eyes blazed. Signal them. This battle is not over. Kess checked. They're still dropping, Admiral, she said softly. Some are not even waiting for your reply. They've seen enough. Another cruiser shuddered as Mara's wings passed. Half its guns went dark. Then its main drive blew out in a clean puff of plasma that did not rupture the core. Gold wings slid away, leaving it drifting. Two more ships, neutralized, came Ren's calm voice in Ellis' ear. Strike Wing is drawing a bright line for them. Ellis nodded. Keep their casualties low, he said. Here, we need witnesses more than wreckage. Admiral Shaw's gaze slipped to the Drevy flagship icon. He's still coming, she said. On Gleaming Fang, Thrax Vorn gripped his chair so hard his knuckles blanched. Missed shots from the Titan's earlier volleys still glowed on his view. Around him, more of his ships fell quiet, either under human disabling fire or by their own choice. Yet a straight path to safety remained open, untouched. Kess looked from the map to her commanding officer. Admiral, she said, heart beating hard, the human ship has left entire rear corridor. Clear. Our FTL clear zone is open. They've taken apart our teeth, but they're not closing our throat. We can retreat, regroup, learn, and live. Thrax did not answer at once. Memories flickered in his mind. Early campaigns where he had been praised for not flinching. Council rooms where he had been held up as the face of Dominion strength. Small races staring at his fleet with fear. If he retreated now, that image would crack. Admiral, Kess repeated, more urgent, our cruise. The Dominion does not teach young races that fear will break us, he said. If this Titan leaves Sol, others will follow. We may never again have this clear a chance to show Earth their limits. Kess stared at him. Sir, we do not have a chance, she said, forgetting caution. We have a way out, and they are handing it to us. Maybe that is the lesson they want to give. Thrak's eyes flashed. Enough, Lieutenant. We will not crawl away under their gaze like beaten pets. He leaned toward Tactical. Bring all remaining fire on their central spine, he ordered. If we die here, we die with our guns aimed at their heart. For a second, the bridge went even quieter. Some swallowed. Some stared down at their stations so no one would see. Kess felt a cold spread through her chest. She knew in that moment that the story of this battle would not be just about human power. It would be about Drevy pride, too. Admiral, she said softly, please. He did not look at her. On the Obsidian Crown, new data came in. Flagship is committing, Wren said. They're directing everything they have left at our main cannon spying. Several remaining ships are following. Others are breaking off, dropping shields or burning hard for the exit corridor. Ellis leaned forward. Separate them, he said. Do not block the ones who run. Mark those who still press for full force. Wren tagged them. 7 ships staying with the flagship, he reported. They're sacrificing themselves for this last push. Admiral Shaw's eyes were sad. End it, she said, but show the watching galaxy that we gave them every chance to live. Ellis nodded once. Order to all batteries, he said. Free to fire on pressing ships with full disabling intent. If that fails, you may erase. Do not touch any vessel that powers down or turns away. Captain Keen, pull your wings back from the flagship's immediate zone. We're about to fire the main cannon. Mara's voice came back at once. Copy that, she said. All wings shift focus to rear guard and stragglers. Leave the lead beast to the crown. Her fighters peeled away from Gleaming Fang's immediate arcs, streaking toward other ships that still shot wildly. In each case, they aimed for guns, then engines, then nothing more. On Gleaming Fang, Kess's console flashed a harsh red. Admiral, she said, dread winding tight in her gut, the human Titan is charging its main spine. Energy levels rising, fast. This is a different scale from the side batteries. She stopped. Numbers crowded her screen that did not feel real. That weapon was why they built this hull. Thrax said quietly, so be it. We will take its blow standing. He straightened his uniform and looked to the forward hollow. Bridge crew, he said, sending his voice across the ship. It has been an honor. Keep firing. Some hands shook as they moved. Some did not move at all. On the Obsidian Crown, deep in the core, the main cannon woke. It was not a single tube but a line of nested chambers along the ship's spine, each feeding and sharpening the energy of the next. Reactors bled power into capacitors the size of towers. Field coils twisted gravity around a central barrel until space inside it grew thin and tight. Hina watched charge levels climb. Main cannon at 60%, she said. 80, 90. Ellis' face was calm, but his hand gripped the chair arm a little harder. Target? Ren asked. Ellis looked at the symbol for Gleaming Fang. The flagship, he said. Cleanly, no stray damage. Admiral Shaw added. Make it a single, clear stroke. The Dominion must never be able to say we toyed with their leaders until the end. We offered them retreat. They refused. Now we answer. Main cannon at 100%, Hina said. Field stable. Shot is ready. Silence fell on the Titan's bridge. Ellis breathed in. Once, out once. Fire, he said. From outside, it did not look like a huge energy blast. There was no giant flare, no spreading wave. Tight beam leapt from the Obsidian Crown's spine, so bright white-blue that cameras had to dim instantly. It crossed the gap to Gleaming Fang almost faster than sensors could track. For a fraction of a second, the Dominion flagship glowed along a perfect line from bow to stern. On Gleaming Fang's bridge, Cass felt her stomach turn over. Light burst through the ceiling, not as flame, but as pure whiteness. For the briefest instant, she saw every detail around her sharper than before. The lines on Thrak's face, the small tremor in Rel's hand, the gleam of her own console. Then everything split. The beam cut through the ship's central spine, burning through shield, armor, decks, and supports as if they were wet paper. A wave of force followed, gentle and absolute, pushing the halves apart so that Gleaming Fang did not explode in a messy fireball. It simply came apart along that thin, glowing line and began to drift in two directions, its front and back no longer one thing. The bridge tore in half. Cass's seat ripped away from the floor. Air blasted past her as atmosphere fled into space. She saw Thrax Vorn for one last instant, half his body already outlined in drifting stars, still looking forward. Then a safety field from her suit snapped, active, wrapping her in a bubble. She spun, tumbled, and lost sight of everything. On the Obsidian Crown, the beam winked out. Flagship destroyed, Ren said, voice soft. No secondary blast. Shot was clean. Ellis exhaled. Cease main cannon firing, he said. Do not recharge unless ordered. Aye, Hina replied, hands steady as she powered the system down. Admiral Shaw watched the two large chunks of Gleaming Fang drift apart on the hollow. It is done, she said, across the Drevy fleet. The effect was immediate. Some ships, already half disabled, shut down completely. Lights dimming as crews dropped shields and powered off weapons. Others that had been trying to join Thrak's last charge slammed their drives into full reverse instead. We're seeing mass surrender, Commander Ren reported. Multiple vessels broadcasting distress and compliance signals. Many are cutting power and venting heat as a sign of submission. Good, Ellis said. Captain Keen, stand down offensive strikes. Captain Keen, stand down offensive strikes. Switch to escort and monitor. Any Drevy ship that drops shields and weapons is off limits. Understood, Mara said. All wings, weapons, safe unless fired upon. Move to watch positions. Her fighters shifted smoothly, taking up orbits around drifting Drevy hulls. Not as hunters, but as guards. Casral did not see any of that. She drifted, half-conscious inside the sphere of her suit's emergency cocoon, surrounded by small floating bits of metal and plastic. The stars turned slowly around her. Her ears rang. Her head throbbed. She tried to move and found she could not. Not much. A soft voice spoke inside her helmet. Unidentified Drevy life sign. It said, translated, "This is ENS Obsidian Crown Automated Recovery Channel. Your suit beacon has been tagged. Remain calm. Rescue craft are en route." Kess tried to speak, coughed, then managed, gleaming fang. There was a pause, as if the system politely decided not to answer that. Remain calm, it repeated. She let her head rest back against the inside of her helmet. Through the transparent front of the cocoon, she saw a huge dark shape moving slowly across the stars. The Titan. It blocked light as it passed, a calm, vast shadow that had just cut her world's flagship in half, as if slicing a fruit. She knew then that no matter what the official Dominion stories would try to say later, this image would not leave her. Neither would it leave the minds of every Drevy crew member now sitting on powerless ships, watching the Titan drift past with its guns quiet. On the Obsidian Crown's bridge, Ellis watched rescue markers light up. "Launch recovery boats," he said. "Retrieve as many survivors as possible from the flagship debris and damaged ships. Medical priority, no questions asked." "Already on it," Hina said. "Shuttle teams are heading for the largest clusters." Admiral Shaw nodded once. "Good," she said. "Dead admirals do not talk." "Surviving lieutenants remember every detail." Maya smiled faintly. "Fear plus mercy," she said. "That mix sinks deeper than either alone." Ellis looked at her. "Is that what we're doing?" he asked quietly. "Mixing?" Maya met his gaze. "We're showing them that we could have killed more and chose not to," she said. "That is the part they will not understand at first. That is the part they will keep coming back to in their thoughts." Wren's console beeped. "High-band transmission from Earth Command, Admiral," he said. "Admiral Shaw, they're asking for your status and recommended next steps." Shaw listened for a moment as the message played in her ear. Then she tapped the channel open. "This is Admiral Rebecca Shaw," she said. "Battle at Sol Frontier is concluded. Dominion Task Group is broken. Approximately half their ships are disabled but intact. A smaller number has fled via the provided corridor. Our casualties are minimal." She paused, glancing at Ellis. "My recommendation," she said, "is that we do not pursue. We will escort surrendered ships to a holding pattern at the edge of Sol, treat their wounded, and then release them to return with full records of this event." There was a long silence on the other end. "Understood, Admiral," came the eventual reply from Earth. "And the Council?" Shaw's lips thinned. "The Council will see," she said. "They will see through their own people's eyes." She ended the link and turned to Dr. Dector. Maya Caldwell. "You're up," she said. Maya nodded. She brought up a prepared file on her console. For years, she had crafted it. Words, visuals, timing, not as propaganda in the old human sense, full of shouting and flags, but as a controlled image set meant to land in the mind and stay there. "Comms," she said. "Open a broadcast to all vessels in local space, all bands, then tie a delayed copy into Council relay channels. Use Drevy Human Standard and the top 5 Council trade tongues." "Channel open," comms replied. The hollow above the Titan's bridge lit. Maya stepped forward into the field. Her image, calm and clear, appeared inside every active Drevy ship near Sol, and a few minutes later, on many stations and ships, far beyond, as the signal worked its way through linked relays. She stood against a simple dark background with a small Earth Navy emblem in the corner. No flags, no cheering crowds, just her face and her steady eyes. "Vessels of the Drevy Dominion," she said, voice soft but crisp, translated cleanly. "This is Dr. Maya Caldwell speaking for the Earth Navy vessel ENS Obsidian Crown, and by extension for the defense of Sol." She let a short pause hang. "Today, you came to our cradle system with a task group built on the old belief that Earth is small, loud, and weak." She continued, "You expected us to bow under pressure, as younger species once did when you arrived in their skies." She did not raise her voice. "You have seen that this belief is no longer true," she said. "You have seen a single human titan take your full barrage, then remove your ships from the fight with measured strikes. You have seen your flagship cut cleanly in half, not out of rage, but out of duty. On many Drevy ships, wounded and shaken crew watched, some lying on stretchers, some sitting by dead consoles. We did not chase those who fled," Maya went on. "We left you a way out. We are rescuing your survivors now. We are not interested in your extinction. We are interested in a new understanding." She leaned forward just a little. "Earth will not be mocked," she said. "We will not be pushed at our own frontier. We will not laugh and shrug when our ships are raided and our borders tested. Those days are over." She glanced aside as if checking something, then back into the lens. "You will notice that there are no crowds cheering in our streets," she said. "There will be no parades, no songs, no public nets full of victory speeches. That is because power that needs to shout is unsure of itself." She let that hang a moment longer. "Remember what you saw out here," she finished. "Remember how quietly it happened. That quiet is the sound of the galaxy changing its mind." The broadcast faded. On the Drevy side, no angry replies came. Not yet. Shock still filled the space where pride had been. On Earth, the message reached private military channels and a few high-level council feeds. Ordinary citizens only saw a brief notice. Border action concluded. No cause for alarm. Admiral Shaw kept it that way. No celebration, she reminded Ellis later in her ready room. No wide news feeds. Let rumors do the work. Ellis nodded. Want people be angry? He asked. At home, I mean. They might want to see proof. They might want to feel safe. They will feel safe when the raids stop, Shaw said. They don't need colored holos of burning ships to know that. She poured 2 cups of thick, bitter tea from a small pot. She handed one to Ellis. Besides, she added, fear should live in the hearts of our rivals, not in ours. If we make a carnival out of this, we teach our own children to cheer for destruction. I am not interested in raising that kind of species. Ellis looked down into his cup. I understand, he said. But our crews, they did hard things. Shouldn't they get something? Shaw's eyes softened. They will get what matters, she said. Time, training, better ships, quiet respect, and the knowledge that on a day when the galaxy expected us to kneel, they stood still and calm instead. She raised her cup slightly. To presence, she said. He raised his in answer. To presence, not fury, he replied. Outside, the Obsidian Crown slowly rotated, using small thrusters to reorient itself back toward the deep dark beyond Pluto. Rescue boats moved like fireflies around broken Drevy hulls, pulling in survivors, patching holes, stabilizing cores. Casral woke in a medbay. The ceiling above her was smooth and white, not Drevy style. The air smelled different. A hint of metal and something like citrus. A human nurse in pale blue stood nearby, checking a monitor. You're awake, the nurse said. Switching to a Drevy trade tongue, your injuries are moderate. You're lucky your suit field worked. Kes tried to sit up. Easy, the nurse said. Your ribs are bruised. Some minor internal bleeding, already patched. Kes blinked. Wear Obsidian Crown, the nurse answered. You're in one of our guest med bays. You and a few dozen others from Gleaming Fang and nearby ships. A tall man stepped into view. Commander Ellis Ward. He wore the same simple uniform she had seen in the earlier hollow, but up close his eyes seemed more tired. Lieutenant Kesral? He asked. She nodded slowly. Yes, she said. Gleaming Fang, Sensor Division. I know, he said. She frowned. How? She asked. Your name was in your suit's beacon tag, he said, and in the logs of ships that fired on us. Records are thorough these days. He pulled a small stool over and sat beside her bed. You are not a prisoner, he said. You and the others will be treated, stabilized, and returned with your surviving ships once Dominion recovery vessels arrive. You will be free to tell your commanders whatever you like. Kes stared at him. You are not afraid of what I will say? She asked. Ellis met her eyes. We want you to tell the truth, he said. That is the point. She swallowed. The truth, she repeated. Images ran through her. The black hull against the stars, the deep pulse under her feet, cruisers sliced cleanly, her flagship cut in two. The truth is, she paused, trying to find simple words. We thought your ships were toys. We thought Soul would be a lesson for you. Not for us. She let out a weak, bitter laugh that hurt her ribs. We were wrong, she said. Ellis did not smile. You were late to notice, he said, but so were others. That is why this ship exists. Why did you leave that path open? She asked suddenly. For us to flee. I saw it. You could have locked us in. You didn't. He nodded. We do not need more dead to prove a point, he said. We needed enough fear to end the jokes and enough survivors to repeat the story. Killing a cornered fleet that is already breaking teaches nothing. Kes looked at his uniform patch. Earth, Navi, you think this will end the jokes? She asked. Yes, he said simply. The galaxy laughs at things it finds harmless. It fears things it does not understand. After today, we move from the first group to the second. Fear, she said slowly. You want them to fear you. He held her gaze. We want them to respect our borders, he said. Fear is the fastest teacher at this scale. But we will not let it turn us into something worse. We will not let it turn us into something worse. That is why we hold back. Kes studied his face. You don't enjoy this, she said. No, he answered. That might be the scariest part, she murmured. He stood. Rest, he said. Your people will come for you soon. When you speak to them, remember this, we did not hunt you as you ran. We did not bomb your worlds. We did not cheer. He stepped away, then looked back once, and remember how quiet it was, he said, when your flagship died. Then he left. Years later, Kesral would sit in a Drevy Academy hall, telling fresh cadets about that day. She would describe how the Titan's low pulse had felt in her bones, how Dominion weapons had seemed bright and loud and still bounced off its shields like thrown pebbles. She would talk about the way human strikecraft moved, not as hot-headed heroes, but as a calm pattern. She would repeat Dr. Starr, Maya Caldwell's words about power and quiet. She would quote Ellis Ward's simple statement that Earth would no longer be mocked. We thought humans would try to be like us. She would tell the young Drevy, some leaning forward, some sitting stiffly, loud, proud. Always ready to show off, she would shake her head. Instead, she would say, they'd built a ship that sat in the dark and waited. It didn't roar. It didn't rush. It didn't rush. It just existed, and that was enough to change the whole balance at the edge of Soul. In the wider galaxy, stories of the Obsidian Crown spread in strange ways. Some came from official reports, clean, careful language in council files that older empires pretended to treat with cool interest, while secretly rerunning the censor logs many times. Some came from dock gossip, Drevy mechanics talking about the terrifying neatness of human cuts in damaged hulls, how every line looked like it had been drawn with a ruler. Some came from smugglers and traders who claimed truthfully or not, that they had seen the Titan move near Jupiter's orbit, silent and vast. But the one fact that appeared in every version was this. After the battle at the Sol Frontier, no one in the council chamber laughed openly. When human delegates spoke, other species listened more carefully. When Earth proposed a new border agreement, even old empires checked the maps twice. When rumors of a second Titan under construction reached distant stations, nervous jokes fell flat. The Drevy Dominion held its pride as best it could. They said, in public, that the loss at Sol was a tactical misjudgment, that Admiral Thrax had been insufficiently briefed. They shuffled command charts, rewrote training books, and started their own very quiet projects to match Titan-scale weapons, but in private, on training ranges, and in dark map rooms. Drevy officers spoke a little softer when the word Earth came up. They remembered the clean cut through gleaming fang. They remembered how their own bodies had betrayed them when the low pulse rolled through their ships. They remembered that the humans had left them a way out, and that some captains had taken it. Out beyond Pluto, the ENS Obsidian Crown settled once more into a patient orbit at the Sol Frontier. Its hull lights dimmed to their usual soft glow. Its main cannon slept. Its fighters were cleaned, repaired, and returned to their bays. Inside, life went on. Crews ate in mess halls under quiet talk. Engineers argued about coolant flows, pilots training footage, looking for mistakes. No banners hung, no music played loudly. The biggest celebration was an extra dessert option in the main galley, and even that was not labeled. Commander Ellis Ward stood alone for a moment in a small observation blister at the very edge of the ship. Through the thick, transparent panel, he could see Sol as a tiny, bright star far behind him. Closer, Pluto was just a speck, and beyond that, the Milky Way stretched in a slow sweep of stars, busy and full, and suddenly just a little less sure of itself. He thought about all the jokes he had read in old council transcripts, all the times human names had been the punchline. He thought about the Drevy lieutenant lying in his med bay, eyes full of 3 different things at once: fear, anger, and new respect. "Not bad for a blue cradle," he said quietly to the empty room. He did not smile. Power, he knew, was not about how wide you grinned. It was about how steady you stayed when everyone else started to shake. Behind him, deep inside the Titan, engines hummed. A quiet giant rested in the dark at the edge of home presence, radiating out with no need for fury. Far away, on dozens of worlds, people told stories about the day the galaxy stopped laughing at humanity. Most of those stories got details wrong, but they all agreed on 2 things. There was a ship called the Obsidian Crown, and after it showed itself, the stars felt different.